Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to those of you around the world. Welcome to the daily Trade the Chain crypto update, where we give you everything you need to know for the next 24 hours and hopefully the next few days. Today is Monday, March 6th. We are at the top of the week, the first full week in March, and we are heading into what should be an interesting week with Jerome Powell speaking to the Senate on Wednesday. And the employment report or unemployment report, however you want to look at it, is released on Friday. So two big important milestones for the week. Let's go ahead and dive in and see how things look. So we're looking at DXY as we typically do. Rejected out of the demand zone last Thursday and has continued the slide through the weekend into the early Monday, or I guess late Monday session now. So we're hovering right around that 104.2 area, which coincides with, high end of this little small range that we traded in for several days in February. And we have the estimated 200 moving average on the 4-hour that I expect to act as some sort of supports. And we have actual, range support down here at 103.6. So we have a bit of a decision zone here, considering, if you just draw this line right here, it'll make a lot more sense in terms of exactly where price is. So if you, can hold this area, DXY is moving higher back towards the demand zone, risk likely moving lower. And of course, if DXY breaks through here and starts to move lower towards 103, 104 on the dot, all the way down to 103.7, then you would likely expect risk to move higher in that environment. So very much at a decision, at a what we call a pivot point, decision zone, whatever you want to call it, and still need to see how this reacts. But we know it's going to be one of these directions, and we will understand that, bounce off support, bad for risk. Acceptance underneath support is good for risk. So looking at equities, fascinating, price action here is we opened up on Sunday, slightly lower, ran around, or price hovered around. That's the word that I'm looking for. Couldn't get that out of my tongue. Price hovered around previous daily close into the early hours of this morning before boosting higher towards 40.80. Now being rejected off of 40.80, what you'd want to see is 40.50 as low as 40.46 holding as support. Else, if it breaks through this area, it'll probably end up heading down to back to 40.10. Now, these areas basically coincide with it, and I'll zoom out. This is basically a larger demand zone for equities. So, at the highs for January 27th and 31st, and then, near the lows of where we traded in, in this early February area, we obviously have this deviation area, but basically, a lot of gap in trading in this area. So, definitely a important demand zone for price action. So, ugly 4-hour wick right here that's going to close in 20 minutes. So not going to be the sexiest 4-hour wick, unfortunately, for equities. And it does appear to be a rejection pretty much at that demand zone. So if we accept back beneath 40.46, probably going to head to 40.10 for, either a bounce here or moving lower back to where we were trading for, the latter half of February. So important area to note is basically 40.80 to 40.10. If that area continues to get rejected, you want 40.46 to hold. If that cannot hold, you are down to 40.10 or 39.30. For Bitcoin, now the interesting thing here is the fact that, very tight range. And if you kind of look at, similar trading pattern, we did this once already where, more or less tight range, tag, the weekly VWAP, and then end up careening back down. So that could certainly be in play again. Looking at our favorite RSI trend, I'm trying to make sure I line that up properly. We are, just at the point of breaking above the RSI trend. If you can, I'll try to zoom in as much as I possibly can here, but you can see just breaking above on this 4-hour. Now the BTC 4-hour ends in 80 minutes, not in 20 minutes like the equities 4-hour candle, but very, very important close there for Bitcoin. If it can get above this RSI trend, very similar to what happened with equities when we broke above that RSI trend. So just kind of redraw that. That's what happened with equities when we broke above the RSI trend. Now, if Bitcoin were to firmly break above the RSI trend, I would expect, very similar to what we did last week, where we went and tagged the weekly VWAP open. Maybe we do similar here, tag the weekly VWAP open, maybe get as high as 23.3 and then come back down, or, hold this 4-hour estimated 200 moving average and move back higher. So that would make a lot of sense. But of course, equity, the crypto bid has been very weak while equities have been chugging. And of course, if equities, do confirm, a bearish set of candles here with rejection from the demand zone, that may not allow Bitcoin to fly higher. We have seen Bitcoin, have a lag in correlation, meaning that the correlation has been delayed. After, it's been following equities rather than, moving with equities. So, if you are a fan of the, the lag narrative, then you would expect, Bitcoin to definitely head back up to 23. I'd say 22.8, 23, or 23.3. This whole kind of area right here, you have obviously this, you have the VWAP, and then you have resistance right here. So pretty decent area for, a long, if that is your bias. But if we cannot break above, the 22.6, 22.7 level to then attack this moving average VWAP and resistance, then we will end up, continuing to either range here or then get rejected back lower towards 21.3. So if you zoom out, you can see, what we talked about last week. We have, highs from mid-January, lows from February, all coinciding right around 21.3. So if we, we could, I'll go ahead and get rid of these lines just to give you two versions of what may happen here. So move up, move lower like that, or we simply just move lower like that. I think those would be the most plausible. Of course, maybe this dip does not happen if we get above the VWAP and the estimated 200 moving average, but we have to be aware that 23.3 is another pivot point, and will act as resistance if we can get that high. And of course, if equities are also weak in addition to crypto, would not expect that to last. So I think, typically in this type of movement or type of pattern, you would expect some sort of Bart Simpson pattern where you jump up, come back lower. But, we are definitely in an environment where we can still get rejected off this RSI, which we did. It didn't happen the first time for equities when it retapped, for a third try. So, will the same thing happen for Bitcoin? We, of course, don't know. So get above 22.6, you can attack 22.8. Get above 22.8, you can attack 23. Get above 23, you can attack 23.3. Get rejected at 23.3, likely back to the current trading range, except above 23.3. Now you're talking about 24 or higher. So pretty simple level-to-level management for Bitcoin. And if you are confused, like many are in this range, then it's probably best to wait for an extreme move, meaning breaks below, 22, or can get above 22.8, or rejected at 22.8 would be, two good areas for, potential shorts is, breaks under 22. And then, if it can get above 22.8, maybe you play in the squeeze, or you try and short 22.8 or 23 or 23.3, depending on how it moves up here. Looking at Ethereum, probably going to be very similar outlook compared to Ethereum and Bitcoin. Very tight range, same timing for all of the general movements. Resistance is 1600. Support is down here around 1530. We are directly in, the center of this range. So, basically what you want to see is it gets above 1600 and moves higher toward in the higher end of the range, gets rejected at 1600, probably just going to continue to range around here. And if it's below 1550, then you are probably headed to 1530 or lower. We do have a lot of, the larger range for this movement can certainly move as low as, 1475 and still have some sort of bullish momentum to it. So very important to watch out for if Ethereum breaks below 1550, 1530 first, then 1500, 1490, as low as 1475. So these three levels should act as some sort of Ethereum support. If we do move that low, will they survive? I'm not sure, but I would expect a reaction at those levels nonetheless. So that's pretty much the major outlook for crypto and risk. I mean, the biggest story is, equities moved higher. Bitcoin continued to slide in range. Equities now starting to get rejected or potentially rejected off of a very important demand zone. If they do head lower, one wonders, with crypto looking quite weak, does crypto end up following that slide? Or if equities can somehow survive up here, will crypto snap back to continue correlation with equity? So those are the big questions. We obviously don't have the answers, but we do have the levels and we do have the outlook for how they will trade around those levels. So good luck, happy trading, and I wish you all the best this week. Remember, Jerome Powell testifies before the Senate on Wednesday. I believe that's around 10 a.m. Eastern time. So that'll be a very interesting hearing to listen into. Of course, listening for the big three: inflation, unemployment, interest rate hikes. You can equate this very similarly to an FOMC meeting, because we're going to get questions towards Powell in which he's answering those questions around the data points that the market wants to understand in order for it to price in higher price action or lower price action. So, and while we're not going to get a rate hike, we will get some opinions and estimations and an outlook from Jerome Powell, which is as close to an FOMC meeting as you're going to get. So that'll be on Wednesday, and then we have jobs report on Friday. We'll go over jobs report stuff later on this week. But last month was an extremely strong jobs report. So the market is definitely hoping for that to cool off this week, because a max unemployment level is certainly not helping inflation, although it is helping the economy. So I'll leave everybody with that. See everybody tomorrow. And if you're not in the Trade the Chain community, you're missing out on all the juicy alpha and information that we post in there every morning, noon, and night. So talk to everybody tomorrow.